a short PowerPoint about what animals do to stay alive. So I do this because we're getting ready to look at a lot of these characteristics for a lot of different animals. We'll start with our invertebrates and we'll kind of work our way up from there. But this is just kind of generally like, what do I need to look at when I'm looking at the different characteristics and how to differentiate these different types of animals. So the first one is feeding and digestion. So I know a lot of you might know what herbivore, carnivore, are omnivore. I should have added that one in there. But filter feeder, detritivore, sometimes I get some questions on those. Parasite. So when we're looking at these, I'm going to have them write this down on their set of notes. They're going to get a PowerPoint. The slides will actually be printed off, but they'll have like a little notes section off to the side that they need to write in. But as long as we know that an herbivore, they're eating plants, carnivores, meat. Now I'm going to have them add omnivore on their paper at both. Now filter feeder is just that. It is filtering, I'm trying to think of a better way to put this. It's filtering food like a sponge. Like a sponge, water would come through, it filters out the food and gets what it needs and the water moves on. Detritivore though, make sure we need to know what that is. It's feeding on dead matter. A lot of time, organic matter, so a lot of times it's like dead leaves, that kind of thing. And then lastly, a parasite lives on/in another organism. Alright, so we'll see a bunch of these. We'll see all of these as we get going here. Now the other big thing with feeding and digestion and what we truly will start to look at, some of these early organisms, they don't have a lot going on as far as a mouth or stomach or intestines, but that's what eventually we want to look at. How complex is this organism? So take for example this bee. A bee, it does have a mouth. Now it's not labeled up here, but you can see it has a mouth. We can see that it has this tube, it has a stomach, and then they call this the intestines and the rectum. So it's just one straight shot, not a lot going on, like if you were to compare that to a human's, for example. And that's what we're going to be doing a lot of, comparing pictures here in the next few weeks, just comparing these different animals and us trying to figure out a good way to classify them and put them into groups. Now we know what scientists have done, but just getting you guys to see and do that and why scientists have done it the way they did. Or maybe you're like, oh, I think it'd be better if they had changed it to this. And science is continually changing. All right, let's go on to the next one. Real quick, back here I'll kind of discuss some of these pictures with them, such as the squirrel obviously eating a plant, but this down here, that's a parasite, and we will look at the different types of worms. There's different types of them. Obviously we have parasitic worms, so that's what is being pulled out of that foot, which has to be slowly. If they pull it out too quickly and that worm breaks, then it goes back up into the foot and you have to try to dig it out again, which is painful, so you don't want that to happen. All right, respiration. That is taking in oxygen and giving off CO2, and I'll talk to them about like why. Why do we even need oxygen? Like, is it just because our bodies like to take it in and release it? Like, what are we doing with this oxygen that we need? So like if I suffocate, like why? Like my body, what's it need that oxygen for? And basically we need it to make energy, right? That's happening in respiration, which is happening at our mitochondria. So how does this happen? Sometimes through diffusion, so I'll have them write something off to the side for diffusion if they're not sure what that is. It's just when things can spread through. A lot of times with a lot of these animals, we'll see that they diffuse through their skin, so things just diffuse, come and go through their skin. Is there lungs? Are there something else? So if we're looking here, if you're looking at this grasshopper, they have air sacs. And air sacs here, and then spiracles are the holes that allow this air to come in and out of. So, I mean, a lot different than what we have as humans. Of course, insects are going to, but we're going to see a bunch of different things as we look through each organism here. All right, so you'll see this after this PowerPoint. The next thing we'll be looking at our invertebrates And you'll see where in respiration there can be many different things, but our most simple organisms tend to diffuse. And then as they get more complex, we start to see air sacs, or then lungs eventually. All right, circulation. How is stuff, and I have stuff like that, because I'm going to ask them what exactly do we need to circulate, which oxygen transported through the body. Is it just oxygen we have to transport? What else are we transporting? If you think about that, we have a lot of blood vessels and arteries and veins and all that good stuff, and what, is it just oxygen traveling through there? So I'll ask them that and try to get some answers out of them. But we also need, we have blood vessels and everything running very closely to our intestines and everything, because it is getting nutrients from our intestines and delivering that to cells. They're also running very closely with our kidneys, because they are releasing waste into our kidneys, and our kidneys filter that blood, and the waste leaves as urine. So our blood's circulating a bunch of stuff, not just oxygen. So once again, we're going to look, and is this happening through diffusion? Is there an open or a closed circulatory system? So I'm going to have them add that here, because I should have put that here. Is it open or closed? Closed means you have vessels. Open means there are no vessels. All right, so that's going to be something that we look at. Open or closed, and is there a heart? If there are veins and arteries, then it is closed. Is there one heart? Are there many hearts? Or is it just diffusion? Is there just kind of blood and it kind of just diffuses into these open cavities? Because we see that happen sometimes too. So if you're looking at this mollusk here, which is a snail, an example of a snail. If you're looking here, I'm going to look at all these words here. Oh, I find heart. And then that is it. You just have a heart. So to me, if there's no real vessels or anything, then I'm going to conclude that this is probably an open circulatory system where there's a heart that pumps blood into those pumps, that blood goes into the cavities and circulates. Okay? But anyways, some different things that we're going to look at there. All right, excretion. Now when I say excretion, I always get all the kids, they're like kind of giggle and laugh, because they're thinking of like when you go to the bathroom, like you eat and when you have feces, that kind of waste. I'm not talking about that kind of waste. So when we say excretion, we're talking kidneys. We're talking liquid waste. And how do we get rid of that liquid waste? Ammonia. So really this is like, oh gosh, all of the, I'm trying to remember what I wanted to say here. Toxins. When we have toxins in our body, our blood releases that to the kidneys. The kidneys filter it out, and they take those toxins, and it becomes urine, right? So, do we have kidneys to get rid of this? If I'm looking at this worm here, let's see here. Do I see kidneys? I'm looking. There's an excretory canal, so there's somewhere where it can leave. Look, different than the anus. So we are not talking digestive waste here. And I don't see kidney here. I don't see any type of kidney. I just see an excretory canal. So maybe it just kind of leaves. Maybe there's nothing that truly like filters that, or however that goes. But if you look at this worm over here, there is a bladder. We'll talk about nephritophores, all that, a collecting tube. Ooh, and we can do that, a collecting tube. But there are things here. It's not kidneys per se. It's kind of the simple version of kidneys. But there is stuff, and that's what we're going to look at. All right, so response. When I'm talking response, I want to know like how, like, can it react? Like most things can react, but is there a brain? Like what are we looking at here? Is there a nerve system of some sort? Like think of humans, do we have a brain? Do we have a spinal cord? Do we have nerves? Are there, in other organisms, are there receptors? Because sometimes you'll just have like a what they call an eye spot, and that's where it can detect light. That's part of the response. Where are they found at? Like if you look here at this hydra, we have a nerve neck, not a brain. Here you have a nerve ring. There are radial nerves though on this. But then look at this, we have a brain. There are eyes. Now it's not eyes like what we think of. They're more there to like spot light and chemicals and that kind of thing. We have a brain, okay? So that's what we're looking at, a brain, giant axon. So you actually start to get these nerves, all right? So that's what we're looking at. How do these things respond to it? Do they have a large brain? Do they not? What do they have? All right, movement. How do they move? Do say most because we're going to see one exception. And so do they move? And then are they using muscles? Are they using something else? Are they, sometimes we'll see this word hydrostatic skeleton. So if they don't have a true skeleton, it's like this fluid-filled space that helps them move. So we'll see that word a lot coming up. So just kind of an idea to make sure that we hit on that so you know what that is. All right, but not too much here in the form of movement. Reproduction, sexual or asexual reproduction, or maybe it is both. Are there hermaphrodites? Because we will see that. It means has both sexes on the individual. So one individual can have male and female parts. We'll see that in some of our simple organisms. But asexually, I will have the kids write down fission, where they split apart. We see that a lot in bacteria, some worms. We have something called budding. We will see some of that. And that is where a piece falls off. So you may have a growth, like I may be seeing here, and it would be like something growing off my shoulder and then falling off, and it made a new meat. So that's what we're having here. So that's what we're looking at. Is there internal or external fertilization? So external fertilization would be like laying eggs on the ocean or the sea floor and then sperm being released on top of them. So that's external. It's happening outside of the body versus internal fertilization. So what are we seeing here in these organisms? Symmetry. We have radial, bilateral, or asymmetrical, which there is no symmetry. So if you look at this beetle, it's bilateral. It has a right and a left side. If you look at this coral, no matter how I cut this thing, I can cut it in all kinds of ways, and it's going to be the same on each side. So that's radial. And then if you look at a sponge, if I cut that in half, it is not the same on each side. If I try to cut it this way, it's not. This way, not the same. This way, definitely not the same. All right, so that's asymmetrical. Germ layers, 1, 2, or 3 germ layers. So we have ectoderm. Ecto means out. So that's your outer layer. We have meso, which is the middle germ layer, and endo, which is in the inside, the inner germ layer. So certain organisms are only going to have maybe 1 or maybe 2, and then as you get more, oh gosh, I can't think of the word right now, but like humans, we have 3. We've got all 3 germ layers. All right, and here it's kind of showing you, like here's your zygote, here's a blastula, then you have 2 germ layers right now, and then you start to get that 3rd germ layer. And it's showing you what these germ layers are. Now, I don't really care too much about what germ layer, like that, the mesoderm is the notochord and all that. I just want to know how many germ layers there are, because my more simple organisms should not have as many germ layers. All right, body cavity. So a body cavity is called a coelom. So if an organism has no coelom, I'm going to assume no body cavity, then it's going to be something very simple. And once again, I want you guys to learn these words because it's going to help you when we start to do these cladograms for these things. So no coelom, very simple organisms, going to be towards the bottom of that cladogram. If it has a coelom, then it has a true body cavity. We have a true body cavity. That's kind of like if you, this sounds gross, so let's do an animal for instance. When we dissect pigs, we can take the skin and we can peel that skin off, and if you're very careful and don't cut through, there is a body cavity that holds all the organs in. Now I have to cut through that so I can get in there and look at the organs, but that's the body cavity. Now we have some things that have like a false body cavity. All right, so you can see the difference here. Look at this no body cavity. See how it's just all filled in through here. You can look at us. Here's our digestive tract right here. And you can see that it's connected here. protocoelom. It's not a true coelom, but you can kind of see the difference there. All right, early development. I think this is the last slide here. Yeah. All right, so we have protosome or deuterosome. So in early development, when you are just a tiny ball of cells, we don't even know if you're going to be a male or female yet. Tiny ball of cells, you start to form this indention right here in the blastospore, and you can see where we start to form, and eventually you form two holes. Now in a protosome, the mouth forms from that hole. So you form a mouth first. In the deuterosome, you can see what happens here. It's starting to form, and the anus is formed first. And you may be like, why do I care? And because we're going to see that certain organisms, the more simple they are, they're going to be one of these. The more complex you are, you're going to be the other. And I don't want to give that away. We're going to see that later on here, so I'm not going to talk too much about that, but that is the difference between protosome and deuterosome. All right, so that's it. I'm just going to go over these things because these kids are going to be seeing a lot about this. You're going to be seeing a lot about this here in the coming week and weeks. So let me know if you have any questions at all, and I will get back to you. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.